It is 3 a.m. and you are still awake, not because of the noise outside, but because of the quiet inside. Because when everything goes still, you feel it, that slow, aching awareness that you have been living someone else's life, that every decision you have made, every smile you performed, every opinion you swallowed, every version of yourself you presented was built for an audience, and now you are alone, and you do not know who you are without them watching. If something in you already knows that is true, subscribe to Mindhush right now and stay until the very end. What comes next is not about fixing yourself. It is about finally finding yourself. Beloved, let us begin with a truth that most people never say out loud. You were not raised to know yourself. You were raised to be acceptable. There is a difference, a devastating difference. From the time you were small, you learned to read the room before you read yourself. You learned which version of you received warmth and which version was met with silence. And so you became an editor, a curator of yourself. You cut the parts that made people uncomfortable. You amplified the parts that received approval. And you called this growing up. But Carl Jung had another name for it. He called it the persona, the mask we build to survive the social world. Not out of evil, not out of manipulation, out of necessity. Every child learns, this is what keeps me safe. This is what makes them love me. This is who I must be. And so the mask is built, layer by layer, year by year, until the mask feels more real than the face beneath it. And here's where the wound begins, beloved. Not in the rejection, not in the loss, in the forgetting. The moment you forgot that the mask was a mask. The moment you began to believe that the performance was the person. Jung wrote that the persona is not the self. It is what we present to the world. So the world does not see how uncertain we truly are. And for years, perhaps for most of your life, you have been investing enormous energy into maintaining that presentation, monitoring how others perceive you, adjusting when you sense disapproval, shrinking when you sense you are too much, expanding when you sense someone needs you smaller. It is exhausting. It is not living. It is performing. And deep inside you, beneath the performance, there is a person who has been waiting, quietly, patiently, with more dignity than you have given them. That person is you, the real you, not the one built for the audience, the one who exists even when no one is watching. Proverbs 4:23 says, "Guard your heart above all else, for everything you do flows from it, not from what others think of you, not from how many times they approved of you. From your heart, from the interior life that only you can steward. You were given a self, not a self to perform, a self to inhabit." And the great tragedy of this age is how many people have vacated themselves in order to live in the opinions of others. Now let us talk about what happens when the persona begins to crack, because it always cracks. Sooner or later, something happens that the performance cannot survive. A relationship ends, a friendship dissolves, a career falls apart. A person who once validated your whole identity simply stops. And suddenly, the mask has no audience, and you do not know what to do with the silence that follows. If this is where you are right now, subscribe to Mindhush and let this channel walk with you. What you are experiencing is not a breakdown. Jung called it a persona collapse, and it is one of the most sacred things that can happen to a human being. Beloved, hear me clearly. A persona collapse is not a failure. It is an invitation. It is the psyche saying, The costume has served its purpose. It is time now to find out who lives underneath it. This is the beginning of what Jung called individuation, the journey toward becoming who you actually are, not who your parents needed you to be, not who your relationship defined you as, not who your trauma conditioned you to become. The person beneath all of that, whole, particular, irreplaceable. Most people, when the persona collapses, do not sit with the emptiness. They rush to rebuild. They find a new audience, a new relationship to perform inside of, a new role to inhabit, a new group whose approval becomes the next anchor. And the cycle continues. Because the wound underneath was never touched. The fear underneath was never named. The question underneath was never asked. Who am I when I am not being watched? This is the question that changes everything. Not, who do people need me to be? Not, who will make them stay? But, who am I? Right now, in this silence, without the mirror of another person's gaze. Who am I? Drop a comment right now, beloved. Type, I am coming home to myself, not for anyone else, as an act of declaration, a signal to your own psyche that something is shifting. Now I want to take you deeper, because there is something else happening beneath the performance, something Jung identified. That explains why other people affect us so deeply, why certain people trigger us violently, why certain people magnetize us completely. Jung called it projection. Projection is this: when we cannot see something in ourselves, when it lives in our shadow, in the parts of us we have buried, we see it in other people instead. The parts of yourself you abandoned, you will worship them in someone else. The parts of yourself you deny, you will despise them in someone else. The love you never gave yourself, you will search for it desperately. In the eyes of another human being. And this is why some relationships feel like oxygen. Why losing someone feels like losing yourself. Because in a very real psychological sense, you had placed pieces of your own identity outside of yourself. You gave them to that person to hold. And when they left, they seemed to take those pieces with them. But beloved, they did not. Those pieces were always yours. They were never theirs to keep. Projection is the great misunderstanding. At the center of most heartbreak, you did not lose them. You lost the reflection, the mirror that was showing you, the parts of yourself you had not yet claimed. Romans 12:2 says, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." Projection is conformity of the deepest kind, allowing the world outside to define the world within. The renewal begins when you stop outsourcing your identity and begin the long sacred work of reclaiming. Now I want to speak to you about what it actually means to focus on yourself, because the world will misunderstand this. They will say it is selfishness. They will say it is coldness. They will say you have become unreachable. Let them say it, because what they are actually reacting to is this. They have lost their mirror. When you were living for others, you were easy to control. Your attention was available. Your approval seeking was predictable. You could be moved by guilt. You could be shaped by withdrawal. But the person who has found their interior life, the person who draws from a source within, they become, to the approval-hungry world, impossible to manipulate. And that is called freedom. Focusing on yourself is not narcissism. Narcissism is an obsession with the self-image, the same trap as before, just inverted, still performed, still for an audience. True self-focus, the kind Jung described as individuation, is different. It is the quiet work of learning who you actually are, what you actually value, what you actually feel, not what you have been told to feel, what you actually desire, not what you perform desiring. It is the practice of solitude, without it becoming loneliness. Because solitude chosen is sacred, solitude feared is a prison. When you sit with yourself, truly sit, without the phone, without the noise, without the next distraction, something begins to surface. A voice, old, familiar, the voice of the self that was there before the world told you who to become. That voice knows things. It knows what you have been avoiding. It knows what you have been craving. It knows the direction you should have turned 3 years ago, but you were too busy performing to hear it. Drop a second comment, beloved. Type, "I am done performing. I am ready to listen." Let that be true today. Even if only for a moment. Psalm 139:14 says, "I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works. I know it well." Not, "I will be wonderful when others agree." Not, "I am enough when I am finally approved of." I am, present tense, right now, exactly as you are. Beneath every mask you have worn, there is a person God looked at and called wonderful. That is not a comfort you earn. That is a truth you inherit. If this is landing in a real place inside you, if something in your chest is moving, subscribe to Mindhush right now. This channel exists for the quiet ones, the ones who are doing the deep work, the ones ready to stop running from themselves and finally come home. Here is what the individuation journey looks like. In real life, beloved. It does not look dramatic. It does not look like a sudden transformation. It looks like a Tuesday morning when someone says something to hurt you, and you feel the familiar pull to collapse, and instead, you breathe, and you remember. Their opinion is not your definition. It looks like a conversation where you say what you actually think for the first time in years, and your voice trembles, but you finish the sentence. It looks like canceling something, not out of fear, but because it does not align with who you are becoming. It looks like sitting in the quiet and feeling not panic, but the first faint outline of peace. This is not selfish. This is the most generous thing you could ever do. Because a person who has found their interior life, who has stopped bleeding their identity into others, becomes a person of real presence, real depth, real love. Not love born of need, not love that requires return to survive, but the love that flows from wholeness, the love that does not perform, the love that simply is. And this is where the road leads, beloved. Not to isolation, not to distance, but to a deeper, quieter belonging. First to yourself, then, from that place, to everything and everyone that is truly meant for you. Drop one final comment before you go. Type, "I choose myself not to leave the world, but to finally show up whole." Say it, mean it, let it settle in the place inside you that has been waiting to hear it. Beloved, you were not created to live your life through the approval of others. You were not made to perform. You were not made to disappear. You were made to be, fully, completely, unapologetically. The persona served you once. You do not need it anymore. The projections taught you something. Now take that lesson back into yourself. The individuation process has already begun. It began the moment you pressed play. Keep going. The path narrows before it opens. But on the other side, there is a person you have never fully met. A person who has been waiting for you with extraordinary patience. That person is you, and they are worth every step. This is Mind Hush, and we will see you in the next one.